Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in my series of Milestone Moments. These are moments in a band's career where everything comes together. It usually features the iconic lineup of the band and can be a point in the band's career that launches them into the stratosphere. So the band that I've picked for today is Van Halen and their 1978 debut album, sometimes referred to as Van Halen 1. Well, what can be said about this record, right? This is a legendary, iconic, maybe one of the greatest debut rock albums of all time. Van Halen storms out of the gates on this record, all guns blazing. The record sounds great, produced by Ted Templeton. It's got a super energetic, on fire, live feel to it. When I think of albums that have this kind of energy and live feel to them, there aren't very many that pop into my mind. AC/DC's Let There Be Rock, I get that feeling too. And Van Halen, the first album, is the same way. It feels like they went into the studio, cracked open some beers, cranked the amps up, hit play, and just went for it. This is a band on fire. They were a popular club band leading up to this, playing covers and a mixture of their own songs. Tons of energy, tons of charisma and character coming out of everybody in the band, and they are just smoking on this. So, all right, if you don't know who's in the band, I will tell you. Of course, Eddie Van Halen, arguably one of the most influential and greatest guitar players of all time, right up there with Jimi Hendrix. His brother, Alex Van Halen, on drums, a very unique drummer. And the combination of Eddie and Alex together, the synergy that they seem to have as brothers with the way they lock in and some of these rhythms that they play, it's really unique and it's really great. And Alex is a fantastic, great hard rock drummer. Michael Anthony, a bass player who doesn't get a lot of, he gets overshadowed a little bit in this band because there's such other big figures in the group. But Michael Anthony, his bass playing is great, and his vocal harmonies are almost as big of a signature to the Van Halen sound as anything else. Those high-pitched Michael Anthony harmonies soaring over the top of everything. And then, of course, David Lee Roth. Maybe one of the, when you think of great frontmen in rock and roll, David Lee Roth has to be in your list. He may not be the most technically gifted singer, but when you talk about character and charisma and just energy and uniqueness, David Lee Roth is just one of those guys with the high-pitched screams, with just the way he sings and sells these songs, and of course with his image. And he's just a guy that just sells these songs like nobody could. So, like I said, this album is just great. It has this burning energy. It comes sort of ominously coming out of the gate here with Running with the Devil, with that low bass note, and then the drums and the guitar kick into that iconic guitar riff. David Lee Roth is right out there, kind of speaking it a little bit there in the verse, and then he goes into his legendary signature high screams there in the chorus. And the guitar solo in this one is really interesting too, because it's kind of not really a guitar solo, which is interesting because here's the first song on the first Van Halen record, and Eddie Van Halen, the next generation guitar hero at this point. And the solo in this first song is more of like an arranged type of thing. Just great, love it. Michael Anthony's classic vocals in there, you can hear it in your head, right? Running with the dead, all the way up at the top like that, just great. And then that stops, and then the drums, bam, that big chord, and then Eddie Van Halen basically changes the world of guitar playing from this point out. If you've seen my video about the timeline of hard rock, heavy metal guitar playing, you'll know that I highlighted early on Jimi Hendrix. He's the guy that changed the game for guitar in the late 60s, and everybody after him was influenced by Jimi. Well, if you were to really distill it down to the two most important guitar players in hard rock, in my opinion, you'd have Jimi Hendrix at the beginning, and then you'd have Eddie Van Halen here in 1978. And this song in particular, it literally changed the way the guitar was played overnight. Millions of guitar players dropped the needle on that song and heard that. Their minds were blown. They headed back to the woodshed to start getting their chops up to where Eddie was, because nobody was playing like Eddie at this point. He had that super fast technique, the whole finger tapping thing, which was totally unique at that time. Other people had done finger tapping kind of before this, but nobody took it and did what Eddie did with it. And the way it's showcased here in Eruption is just absolutely legendary. It's a guitar solo that you hear on the radio. That's how iconic that this guitar solo is. And it just changed everything for everybody. Even Eddie's guitar sound, what he describes as the brown sound, which is this big, warm, thick sound. It's him basically taking a Marshall amp, and he had something that he attached to the amp that made it run even hotter than it normally would, and stories of like him having to retube his amp after practically every song they recorded on this record. And you can almost believe it, because his guitar just has so much gain, so much like scream to it. Nobody had a sound like that, and it changed everything. On top of that, the way he used the tremolo bar, the whammy bar, some people call it, on his guitar with the dive bombs and the harmonics and the noises. Hendrix did that earlier on, but Eddie took it and brought it into a whole new age. And it all really starts right here with Eruption. This song launched all the 80s guitar shredders and guitar heroes that would follow after this. All the LA 80s guys all over the world. It changed everything for everybody. And in fact, I would say that this whole album changed sort of the trajectory of hard rock. It really sent it, even though this is 1978, this album really foreshadows where things would go in the 80s and really sets up and influences what will come in the 80s. And Van Halen being very responsible for the whole California, LA, you want to call it hair metal, whatever you want to call it, melodic rock. Van Halen is right there and right at the top for me for that whole sound. They just epitomize this whole California party, hard partying, hard rocking sound that will just go on to influence so many bands. So all right, so there you have Eruption, and it ends with that long held out note. At this point now, every guitar player in the world, their jaws are on the floor, and then it goes into the cover of the Kinks song, You Really Got Me. But they take what the Kinks did and just dial it up to 11. And it's got all this energy, that the way that riff comes in, da 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 da, da da, and then the band kicks in. I mean, it is just fire and energy straight through it. In fact, this is one of these cases where I think that the cover version of this is more the version that everybody knows than the original Kinks version. This is the version. It's sort of like Jimi Hendrix with All Along the Watchtower. You know, that was a Bob Dylan cover, but when people think of All Along the Watchtower, they think of Jimi Hendrix. The same thing with Hey Joe, that was a cover song, but everybody thinks of the Jimi Hendrix version. This is the same thing with You Really Got Me. This is sort of the version that everybody remembers, and it's just blazing. David Lee Roth, great on it. I'm the One, an upbeat, fast, guitar blazer, Dave in full form, fantastic. Side 2, also we have on side 1, we have, I left out, one of the beginner, if you're a beginner guitar player, you couldn't handle a lot of the other guitar parts on this record, but Don't Talking About Love. That was one that people could wrap their head around because it's probably the most straightforward of the songs on this record. And I've even heard that Eddie was not fond of this song at all, but it became a radio staple. You still hear it to today. Maybe a little burnt out on the song, but it's still a cool song. It's a fun song. And again, it's a very simple song, but it's sold by David Lee Roth, Eddie, Alex, Michael, just the whole Van Halen. And that iconic bop, 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 bop guitar thing in the beginning with the effect on it. I think it's like a phaser or something. Just absolutely legendary. So then I mentioned I'm the One. That's the fast, upbeat rocker. Now you get to side two. You've got Jamie's Crying. Van Halen, such a great melodic band. Every song on this record really could have been a radio hit. A lot of these songs get played on classic rock radio. Running with the Devil, Eruption, You Really Got Me, Ain't Talking About Love, Jamie's Crying, Little Dreamer, Feel. I've heard practically all these songs on classic rock radio at one point or another. So Jamie's Crying, great that drum beat that Alex plays at the beginning, and Eddie's kind of quirky little guitar line and the great harmonies. Also Eddie Van Halen's voice in here with the harmonies, you know, the way they do those three-part harmonies with Michael on top and Dave and Eddie mixed in there. It's just great, and they blend really, really well. Back to I'm the One, where they do where the whole thing breaks down in a ba 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 da shoo-ba-doo ba ba da dum ba ba da shoo-ba-doo, and they stack the vocals there. It's just great. Atomic Punk is a little bit more of an aggressive one on here, and Eddie's got that effect at the beginning of the song, and really Eddie almost the first so many Van Halen records, everybody would be trying to figure out what Eddie was doing, not only technique wise, but sound wise. Like the beginning of Atomic Punk, it's some sort of, he's got an effect going and he's scraping his hand on and it gets strings. I don't know what he's doing there, but back when this stuff came out, nobody had any idea what he was doing, and it was a real mystery. This is before the internet, before even MTV, so everybody was hearing this stuff, and not only from a technique standpoint was he doing things nobody had heard before, but from a sonic standpoint too. I Can't Wait to Feel Your Love Tonight, great one. Another great harmonies. Kind of, you can just picture, again, I can't picture Van Halen coming from anywhere but California. And when I hear I Feel Your Love Tonight, I just picture Dave top down on a convertible cruising down the Sunset Strip, some girls in the car with them. I mean, it's just, Van Halen for me captures that whole late 70s, early 80s California sunshine party, hard partying, rock and roll thing. Little Dreamer takes it back a step, but it's got this really nice melody to it. Dave pulls back a little bit in the verses. Great harmonies. He's held out harmonies from Eddie and Michael that sound fantastic. Ice Cream Man is another cover song on here by John Brim, originally by John Brim. And this is all Dave, in my opinion. He sells this. Dave, the ultimate front man, the ultimate ham. He just knows how to sell a song. Even when Dave is just sort of in that sort of a speaking style voice, it's entertaining. He's just a great showman, and it doesn't surprise me that in these last few years he's gone to Vegas and wanted to pursue that kind of Las Vegas kind of show, because to me that's what Dave is all about, is that kind of showman, old-fashioned style showman, just tons of character oozing out of every song that he does. And then it ends with I'm on Fire, another kind of ripper, sort of like I'm the One, blazing, Eddie's guitar all over. Another thing I always loved about Eddie's guitar playing is he's just burning through these things, and he's got these riffs, but then he throws in these cool little fills, little dive bombs, and little quick little runs and fills. It's just great. And I mentioned earlier that the production on this record I love, because it just feels just live. And there's very little, if any, I have to really sit down with headphones and see, but there's very little overdubbed guitar. It's basically one guitar on one speaker, bass in the other, drums in the middle, vocals, bam, let's go. Harmonies, there you go. And when Eddie drops into a lot of his solos, there's nothing underneath him but the drums and the bass. In fact, if you want to have fun sometime, listen to this album and just turn it on one speaker, just the speaker with just the bass or with just the guitar. And it's really interesting because the way this album is just laid out, it's just really live and simple. So when he does all these guitar fills and stuff, it's just so cool because there aren't all these layered guitars under him. He's just keeping the motion going, keeping the energy going, really with just one guitar. It's just great. And I love the chorus in this song too, because Dave's doing that fire, and it's got Michael's high harmonies, and it sort of modulates with the guitar and then drops down, but the vocals go up higher. So wow, man, just a record that just comes out of the gate ominously with Running with the Devil, but then it just burns it away and ends with On Fire, which really for me is just summarizes this whole record. The whole record is just on fire. So it is a fantastic, great debut album. I love these pictures on the inside. You know, I just read that this was them coming out after the Whiskey A Go Go. Their logo right in place right from the beginning, just absolutely iconic. You know, here they are, just the intensity. I remember seeing this first Van Halen record that I had and see it, and it was just like, wow, man, look at these guys. They just got off stage. It just feels like this is what this album felt like, almost like a live album. And of course, the pictures on the front with Eddie with his legendary guitar, and then Dave on the back. Used to have a friend that had a poster of Dave in this pose in his room, and it's just great, man. I mean, this is a fantastic, one of the greatest hard rock debut albums of all time. All right, so there you go. Van Halen, self-titled first album, 1978. What more can you say? It's legendary. Everybody knows most of these songs on here. And although I've heard a lot of these a million times over, today I dropped this record on my turntable and cranked it up, and I was just like, whoa, I was loving it. This is an album that has aged perfectly. And it was extremely successful for them. And in a lot of ways, it's a milestone album on a lot of fronts. For guitar playing, for launching the whole sort of California, LA hard rock / heavy metal sound, and for Van Halen for launching their career. I mean, this album is sold 10 million copies, went diamond in the US. And basically Van Halen's their trajectory just went straight up after this, and they had some ups and downs maybe in the 90s, but this just launched their career and sent them into the stratosphere right from the word go. So all right, there you go, the first Van Halen record. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think of Eddie Van Halen, Michael Anthony, an underrated bass player, those great harmonies, David Lee Roth, one of the greatest frontmen of all time for showmanship and uniqueness. And Alex Van Halen, such a quirky, unique drummer, the Van Halen brothers. Yeah. All right, let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe and like. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.